This video is a continuation of my first, where I survived for 100 days on the hardest RLCraft config by Shivaxi. If you haven't seen that video, this video may not mean much to you. In this video, I continue that journey until day 218. Before jumping right into day 101, for those of you that do not know what the RLCraft Hardcore config is, it is the newest version of RLCraft released as of June 2021, and there are 1,380 things that make it different than normal RLCraft. Minor changes such as you having less base hearts and getting half XP from all sources, to major changes like enemies getting stronger every step you take from 0-0 are intended to make your playthrough next to impossible. And of course you need to be on hardcore. In this video you will witness a stressful but rewarding 200-day struggle on the magnificent RLCraft Hardcore config. Day 101, I instantly realized that this next 100 days would be completely different than my last. I started off my journey with the only goals being survival and RLCraft completion in mind. Now I was in post-game and a new set of tasks were laid out in front of me. That first fateful day, I made a mental note of all my supplies at my base and quickly prepared for a mining adventure. I had not mined once in the first 100 days, but now I had to because I wanted a geonot pike. This item is only dropped by geonot mobs that spawn on occasion when breaking low-tier ores such as coal, iron, and gold. I made a new diamond pickaxe and enchanted it with diamonds everywhere 3, unbreaking 3, and efficiency 3, and then dove straight into the mines on day 102. On this day, I only found a few geonots, but I managed to get my first geonot fist. This item, while useful for tools, was not what I was looking for though. I only wanted the best items RLCraft could offer me at this point, and I intended to find them, no matter how long it took. I stayed up almost all night 102 mining, and before I knew it, day 103 was upon me, and like a cool breeze sneaks up on a wary traveler, I felt something unexpected. An empty and cold feeling enveloped me, an energy that sent shivers down my spine, the sort of feeling that occurs right before something devastating happens and you know it is inevitable. This was a special type of fear, not of death but of something even more terrifying to me. I had a premonition that my luck had all but ran out, and there are no do-overs. Post-game RLCraft is primarily about luck, and you may think that at this point, 2 days and a bit over 30 minutes of playtime is nothing, but I couldn't help feeling this sudden fear for some reason. I tried not to think about it too much at the time, but throughout my journey I would on occasion think back to that chilling feeling in the mines on early day 103. Later on day 103, I stumbled upon an underground mining town. I decided to cure some of the villagers from the spawners in hopes of netting some new librarians, and to distract me from the fact that I defeated 20-some elusive geonauts with an advanced looting 3 melee weapon, and didn't find what I was looking for. Day 104, I went back to my base to make a batch of splash potions of weakness and to grab my golden apples for the zombie villagers. To cure a zombie villager, you need but splash them with a potion of weakness and then right-click them with a golden apple. 5 minutes later, you have a new villager that surprisingly isn't thankful at all that you saved its life, but that's okay. We basically just bully them anyways.
Stinky.
In truth, they were probably better off as zombies. To make things a bit more interesting though, I activated the Leviosa Zip resource pack that can be found in every version of RLCraft. This was an impulsive decision made in the heat of the moment, but I felt at the time that having a little piece of Harry Potter in the world would be fun. Except for it isn't really Harry Potter. On day 105, I turned all the lava in the underground village into obsidian with a water bucket and began curing the white-shirted zombie villagers. I'd continued this process on days 106 to 107 and realized quickly that I really should have brought a weapon without arc/slash on it. Let's just say I killed a lot of potential god villagers on accident. On day 108, I was back at my base for more supplies, but sadly after curing 9 villagers, I didn't get a single useful one. I went into the nether to grab some brown mushrooms so I could make more splash potions of weakness and then return to the task at hand. On day 109, I found a split shot 3 villager down there though, which was a breath of fresh air. This enchantment was the last enchanted I needed for my god bow. I bought 2 of the books to combine for split shot 4 for later. I decided I would make my bow after completing my geonot pike tool. I cured another 5 librarians after this, who had nothing good, before leaving the underground village, start of day 110. From days 110 to 112, my stash of iron ore, gold ore, and coal kept rising, but still no geonot pike. I gutted an entire mineshaft, multiple cave systems, and began to even strip mine. But on day 113, I decided to leave the mines and try my luck elsewhere for the pike, because frankly, I do not like strip mining thousands of cobblestone when all I want are ore veins. Day 113, while searching for a juicy cave to spelunk, I found a large, scaly friend who decided today was its day to die. So I happily obliged. Well, in truth, I charged at it wildly and took out some frustration on it. I am sorry, dragon, but today just wasn't your day. The fear of being miraculously one-shot by something invisible always loomed in the back of my head from this point forward, but at this point I wasn't very afraid of dragons. At the end of day 113, I slept at a friendly outpost and then continued on my way. Day 114 to 115, I mainly explored while looking for a cave to dive in. On day 114, I cleared a battle tower though, and on day 115, I found a new village and traded with some new librarians there, but I got nothing good. On day 116, I found my way into a promising cave and swiftly began digging into the walls. No ore would escape my gaze and no monster could escape my blade. But the geonot pike continued to elude me. All night 116, day 117, and night 117 I spent in the caves under my base. 45 minutes of mining again led me to nothing but an inventory of iron and coal. As I woke day 118, I rubbed the sand from my eyes and darted towards the nearest ore vein. I mined all day 118, and like all stubborn beasts catch their prey, I too finally stumbled upon a glorious geonot pike on the corpse of a fallen geonot. 5 stacks of iron ore, 2 stacks of coal blocks, 3 geonot fists, a split shot villager, and 1 geonot pike was all I had to show for the long 18 days. I was certainly relieved I could move on to my next task though. Now, all I needed to do was get the geonot pike to level 3 using an equipment infuser alongside some earth charges. I quickly make a level 3 equipment forge and infuser and set out to a nearby desert to fight aripides and clinks at night for the charges I needed. Luckily, deserts are one of the most common biomes in Minecraft, so it shouldn't take long. On day 164, I found my desert, and then Wait, what? On late day 118, I moved over to the desert biome right next to my base. In this biome, I adventured quite a bit, before realizing that this biome will not have the mobs that I need. This biome was the vastly more rare desert mountain biome, not a desert. In this biome at night, the Lycanite mobs mod counts this biome as a mountain, so only beholders, trolls, and other mountain-based Lycanite mob enemies will spawn. Vanilla desert enemies such as husks will spawn though, but that is more like a slap in the face than anything. I needed to move elsewhere for my aripides and clinks. I could have in theory defeated trolls for their earth charges, but with the very high rarity of trolls even in a mountain biome, I imagine it would take me dozens of nights to get the charges I would need, so I decided to take my chances finding one of the most common biomes in Minecraft to make farming much easier. I would also use this exploration opportunity to clear Doom-like dungeons, mega battle towers, and 4 tower dungeons in search of a Ring of the Fairies. I finished up day 118 by defeating 2 rogue dragons and then sleeping at a nearby village. Day 119 I defeated 3 more dragons for scales for a future potential set of armor and stumbled across a very rare and cool castle structure that serves no purpose besides landscape aesthetics. I thought maybe I could make my base there, but I decided to move on. I finished up the day in an underwater Doom-like dungeon. I wanted to be thorough in this dungeon, so I cleaned every chest out throughout night 118 to make sure I didn't miss a fairy ring if there was one in the dungeon. I also would clean out every chest in every Doom-like dungeon from this point forward for that same logic. Day 120, I cleaned out a battle tower, organized my dungeon loot into shulkers, and traded with a Soak Touch villager to see if I had any good enchantments. To my surprise, the villager had Natural Blocking 2 and Lifesteal 3 alongside Soak Touch. I marked this amazing villager on my atlas because I did not have a Lifesteal villager yet. On my way out of the ship, I accidentally left-clicked the other villager though, and then quickly realized my weapon had arc slash on it. I checked the hull of the ship only to realize the librarian was indeed dead. I stayed level-headed knowing that it was my own fault in this case though, so I tried not to credit it to bad luck. Staying positive is important on extended adventures. A simple misclick, I thought. On day 121, I cleared a single battle tower, and on day 122, I found a dragon, a village, and a Doom-like dungeon that I entered and full cleared. Night 122 held a blood moon, so I was forced to explore all night, only to find nothing. And throughout all day 123, I also found nothing besides a single village. On day 124 through day 125, I cleared a frozen doom-like dungeon, and throughout the entire window between days 126 and 128, I found a 4-tower dungeon which I cheesed, a kingdom which I looted for gold blocks, and a glowstone shelter which I looted for crafting runes. I was beginning to worry though. Even the structure discovery rate was low. I had gone through thousands of blocks with next to nothing to find. Up to this point, I had traveled quite a distance from 0-0, but pretty much all I had to show for it were some diamonds, a dead villager, and a shulker box from an underwater doom-like dungeon. Day 129, I cleared a dweller doom-like dungeon. Day 130, I cleared an underwater doom-like dungeon. Day 131, I also cleared an underwater dungeon. On day 132, though, I cleared another underwater dungeon. I was starting to think maybe I shouldn't clear every dungeon I came across, but I really wanted a Ring of the Fairies to help me build my base later. Plus, if I just explored looking for a desert all the time, I would have potentially lost my mind in the long run. On day 133, I found a port city and tamed a cute little friend. I was understandably annoyed at how unlucky I'd been lately, getting next to nothing useful from all the dungeons I'd been clearing, so I thought taming an amphitheater would be fun and would help me cover a longer distance in a shorter period of time. I got quickly distracted on night 133 though, and got off the beast at a battle tower to cheese it. After clearing the battle tower, I made the decision that the amphitheater would be better off without me, so I bid it farewell and went on my way. On day 134, I cleared another underwater doom-like dungeon, finding yet another shulker box. And on day 135, I found another shulker box in yet another underwater doom-like dungeon. I may be finding an excessive amount of these underwater doom-like dungeons, but at least I'm getting some shulker boxes. Going to the end to get these things in RLCraft is absolute nightmare fuel without a Ring of the Fairies. The underwater dungeon I found on day 135 though was absolutely massive, so it took me all night and halfway through day 136 to clear this dungeon. I finished up day 136 finding 2 more villages. I decided that I should head back to my base at this point though, to try to find a desert going in a different direction, since I was having no luck and I was getting pretty far from 0-0 despite exploring in a wide zigzag pattern to cover more ground. I also had 9 shulker boxes of loot from all the dungeons I had cleared to go through. I may not have found a fairy ring, but I had stacks of diamonds and gold alongside dozens of mid-tier enchantment books that would come in handy for later. The sorting process continued on day 138, and I also decided to trap the pesky villagers under my floorboard so they stopped wandering around their house uninvited. Oh, I mean my house uninvited. Much better. Day 139, I found and tamed a Marok and then went into the nether for some nether quartz so I could make a rune reader to see which runes I possessed. I was hoping for a golem helm, ender talisman, and wind talisman. Unfortunately, all I got was the ender talisman and subsequent ender gem, despite having literally every other rune. Yes, I had 21 out of 23 crafting runes, and all that were missing were the golem helm and the wind talisman. I brushed off this fact and decided that it was okay, I didn't need those yet anyways, I'll just get them later. I will just focus on making an ender talisman for the meantime. Late day 139, I got some more of the miscellaneous ingredients from my ender gem and ender talisman, and on day 140 I started searching for the more tricky crafting components I would need. I grabbed some clay from a local creek to toss into a furnace for terracotta, I went into the nether to grab some nether brick, and I ported to my nearby underground mining town to get a coal ore, redstone ore, and emerald ore with my silk touch pickaxe. On day 141, I went to grab the last of the ingredients I would need. I ported to a kingdom to trade with a farmer for pumpkin and then ventured into the jungle next to the kingdom where I would defeat a vespid underground to grab the propolis that it dropped, so I could fuse it with dirt and a crafting table for a mycelium block. Ender talisman, welcome to the quick bar. I expect you to save me a good amount of time traveling, and now I do not need to carry ender pearls with me. I would later enchant this talisman with advanced mending and unbreaking, but I felt it unnecessary at the time since I didn't plan on spamming it. I ventured back out on my quest for a desert on day 142. This time I went in a completely new direction, hoping for the best. To cover more ground, I would continue to use my zigzag exploration strategy, turning at every new land biome I found to cover more ground and to go through more biome generations. Sadly, this always seemed to quickly lead me to oceans, and oceans meant more dungeons. From days 142 to 144, I cleared 2 more underwater dungeons and another battle tower. Only generic loot could be found. On day 145, I found a subject mathematics villager, but I didn't plan on using an offhand max axe for this playthrough like I normally would, because of how much damage I take from enemies. I only survived as well as I had up to this point thanks to my Natural Blocking 3 shield and a wonderful lifesteal enchantment on my main weapon. Losing Natural Blocking 3 for some extra damage seemed too risky for me on the hardcore config. It is better to be safe than sorry, I thought. I don't care if playing a max tankiness build seems a bit unfair to the dragons on my world. All through night 145, I cleared another underwater Doom-like dungeon, but this dungeon happened to be fused with another underwater Doom-like dungeon. I certainly had my work cut out for me. At the start of day 146, I moved on to the second dungeon in the pair, and the first chest I looted had the elusive ring of the dwarves within. This ring had the same rarity as the ring of the fairies, and I was devastated knowing that I came this close to greeting the single item that I wanted most. Like a slap in the face, I took the item that I planned on making a dwarf stout with later if I had the time. Day 147, I cleared yet another underwater Doom-like dungeon and still found nothing of note. But on day 148, I found a massive green Lycanite dungeon that I planned on clearing later. I found another village, and I cleared a mega battle tower. That sadly had nothing again. Day 149, I miraculously found another teal exterior Lycanite dungeon. The odds of two of these dungeons being within such a short distance of each other is truly remarkable. I couldn't find what I was looking for, but the seeds certainly provided some rare structures to admire. Oh, right, I still need a desert. On day 149, I also cleared an ice battle tower and a 4-tower dungeon, but the loot was sparse. On night 149, I defeated my first ice dragon of the playthrough though, which was pretty exciting. I accidentally took its scales rather than its blood though. Day 150, I cleared 2 battle towers, another 4-tower dungeon, and found a port city. And then on day 151, I found a few villages and a friendly outpost, where I traded with librarians there. But the enchantments were absolutely atrocious. On day 152, I found another friendly outpost with more bad enchantments, and cleared another battle tower. Days 153 to 155, I found a few oasis villages, regular villages, and 2 more mega battle towers, but all the librarians and dungeons yielded nothing that I needed. By day 156, before I knew it, I had cleared nearly all of my atlas out to difficulty 10 in all directions, but still no desert could be found. Later on day 156, I found a village and fought a dragon at difficulty 15 that had nearly 3,000 HP. But other than that, nothing else happened that day except for me finding vast landscapes with nothing useful to be found. Day 157, I found another friendly outpost with a terrible villager, another mega battle tower with no fairy ring, and another ocean and port city. It seemed that half of my seed was ocean. Day 158, I found yet another port city. The bright side of all my adventuring up to this point was that I had plenty of librarians to trade with in cities and villages for later. Day 159, I cleared another underwater Doom-like dungeon with no luck. And on day 160, I ported back to my base to store my XP and to enchant my Silk Touch pickaxe with efficiency. I should have done that earlier, but never got around to it. Day 160, I take my newly made Silk Touch pickaxe and grab sea lanterns from a nearby ocean temple, so I can use them as a light source for the base I planned on making. On day 161, I cleared another underwater Doom-like dungeon and found a mushroom biome? Wow, such a rare biome. Thank you, Minecraft. Day 162, I found a difficulties endowment 4 villager, and I bought 2 enchantment books from him in case I would decide to build a stronger melee weapon later. After that, I stumble across a kingdom, and in the distance, I see sand. I see lots of sand. With bated breath, I approached. Never had I been happier to see this dreadfully hot and boring biome before. I finally found a desert. Except for when I got close to the desert, I realized it was another desert mountain biome. Day 163, I find another friendly outpost and I clear a Doom-like dungeon, with no luck. The Doom-like dungeon was connected to a teal Lycanite dungeon, so I decided I would clear that dungeon too. After I realized that I did too much damage to the Lunar Grew mini-boss and that it was a rare variant with an insane bulwark healing effect on it, I decided to leave the dungeon because I didn't need anything from the dungeon anyways. I dug to the surface and continued on my way. But honestly, I felt discouraged and defeated. As the sun came up on day 164, I was thinking about giving up on the entire project. I was on day 164 and all I had obtained at this point, in my eyes at least, was an Ender Talisman, a split shot villager, and a geonot pike that wasn't even level 3. I guess some shulkers too, but I don't really need those. 36 more days until day 200, and I still had not found a desert? Plus, I just had to retreat cowardly from a Lycanite dungeon boss fight because I didn't have a weapon on me under the damage cap. I wasn't feeling too great. I slaughtered the innocent Makas and Arisaurs in the Savannah biome for battle burrito ingredients while thinking of what I should do. I was at difficulty 15 and my atlas was nearly covered on all sides. At this moment, I remember the cold feeling I felt on day 103. I finally accepted that my luck had run completely dry. I decided to stop searching for a desert biome and to give up on my geonaut pike tool. I thought, well, I will probably find a desert eventually, and the time I will lose farming for nether quartz in the Lost Cities dimension with a regular pickaxe is nothing compared to the time I had already lost. I decided to just get my fairy ring and to begin building my base. I got on my Marok and continued my adventure. And less than a minute later, I found a desert!
What the fuck?
I slaughtered the 3000 HP red dragon at the end of my difficulty 15 desert and eagerly awaited nighttime with a second wind of energy. I said to myself, there is no such thing as luck, just experiences, and I wouldn't let this become a bad one. I slaughtered clinks and airpeats all night in the desert, and on day 165, I leveled up my geonaut pike at my equipment diffuser and made my new god tier equipment forge tool. I also made myself a new Silk Touch Dragonboat pickaxe with Advanced Efficiency 3, Tunneling 2, Unbreaking 3, Mending, and Versatility. I was feeling good. Even though I still needed a fairy ring, I felt like my adventure had finally begun in earnest. I rushed out on day 166 and I dove into the Lost Cities dimension to begin gathering quartz blocks. As I began this journey though, I realized that I had a lot of XP, so I went back to my base, made a new reforging station to reforge my bauble's secondary stats, and reforged every bauble I had on for the hardy secondary quality. It took a lot of XP, but it was worth it. I also made a polarized stone bauble on night 166 and reforged it as well. This bauble would help speed up my quartz gathering journey quite a bit, since the quartz I mined would be magnetized towards my character, so I could swiftly pick it up. On day 167, I decided to level up some of my stats in the L menu. I may not have a fairy ring, but I got a lot of ender pearls throughout my dungeon crawls, and this allowed me to have nearly 2 barrels full of XP tomes for me to go through. I leveled my stealth to 2, my agility to 12, my sprint speed to max, and my sneak speed to max. Full speed ahead. Days 168 through 171, I spent entirely gathering quartz in the Lost Cities dimension. My main sources were found throughout the underground railways and the surface roads. I also grabbed a lot of white stained glass with my Silk Touch pickaxe for some windows. On day 172, I continued as normal, but I got a little scared. I had the tick lag glitch where my days and nights became longer. The sun kept rubber banding, in other words. I personally didn't mind the glitch giving me longer days, but it made all of my actions lag terribly. I felt vulnerable and was afraid that if a blight zombie or two swarmed me that I would be in grave danger. My movements were slow and actions would not register. I decided to restart my game twice, and on the second time the glitch seemed to have fixed itself. I finished up my quartz gathering journey on days 173 to 175. I had 9 shulker boxes full of stacks of quartz blocks and another shulker box full of stacks of stained glass, quartz stairs, and sea lanterns. I felt ready to build my base. On day 176, I still wanted to get a fairy ring, to make a bow, and to make a new set of armor with advanced protection on it. But I still needed an advanced protection villager. I decided to level up 5 librarians to see what I would get, and depending on the luck I had with the librarians' enchantments, I would decide whether I would build my base or go for a Ring of the Fairies. Luck certainly hadn't been on my side so far this run, but I decided this little game of chance would be fun. Bad luck meant building the base, and good luck meant to go for the Ring of the Fairies. On day 177, the RLCraft gods cast their judgment. When an Advanced Protection 3 enchantment came into view, I could hardly believe my eyes. This was textbook, storybook even. I knew that from this point forward would only be up from here. I was off to get myself a Ring of the Fairies. I still decided to level up the 4 librarians though. I got Advanced Punch 1 from a second villager, which I also could use but didn't need, and the other 3 villagers had bad enchantments. I still decided that was pretty good though. I leveled up 3 more librarians after that for fun in a nearby kingdom on day 178 and got Efficiency 5 from one and Pushing 2 from another. Both enchantments that I needed. On day 179, I got Curse of Possession from another villager, which motivated me to keep leveling villagers in a port city on day 180. But after getting no more good enchantments that day, I headed out on day 181 to hopefully find a ring of the fairies. I cleared a Doom-like dungeon that day with no luck and found another port city, which I just took the Emerald Throne with me and went on my way. Day 182, my game lagged so hard it nearly crashed, and I realized it was because a cult island generated inside the port city which I had just found. Good job, RLCraft. Late day 182, I start clearing an underwater dungeon, and then I find an insanely amazing pair of boots within, which genuinely surprised me. From days 183 to 184, I clear 2 more underwater Doom-like dungeons, but I find nothing of importance. On day 185, I continue my search for the fairy ring, but then I stumble upon a 4000 HP ancient sea serpent. I know it was dumb to take the beast on, but I had never fought something like that before. I summoned some grooves and dove at the beast. I was flung out of the water, my grooves got nearly instantly annihilated. The fight was genuinely exciting, but I was too evasive. With evasion 3 on my pants and a stone of the sea bauble, I did my best to avoid taking damage in case the sea serpent did astronomical and irreparable damage. Despite myself being in a max bulk build, I was still worried I could be defeated, so I continued to focus on proper combat techniques in every dangerous fight I took on. On day 186, I wake up to the sight of a mega battle tower and confidently look up how to make a fairy do, as if it would somehow give me luck, and frankly, I also just wanted to know how to make it for some reason, but got discouraged as I remembered it needed dragon's breath, which is a bit annoying. The mega battle tower being fused with a roguelike dungeon gave it a unique appearance, which made me think that if the ring was inside this goofy looking dungeon, that it would be absolutely perfect. After clearing the top enemies, I jokingly do an eeny meeny miny mo guess at a chest, saying the fairy ring would be in the middle one, and my reaction to what inside was absolutely priceless. This was perhaps the 100th time during the run that I said that there would be a fairy ring within a certain dungeon loot chest or anything like that, but this victory felt especially sweet. It was funny seeing how childish I can be when watching back the recording, but I can't blame myself. I was truly happy. With that ring, I could now do everything that I wanted to do. But with only 10 days left, what really can I do? Your best! Oh, okay. On late day 186, I go into the end fearlessly now that I have a fairy ring equipped, and I grab the Ender Dragon egg that I left there earlier. I decided to make a shield of honor with it. Goodbye, Ender Dragon egg. I'm not much of a collector anyways. I finished reforging my shield of honor on day 187, and I go into the nether for a magma block so I could make a pair of golem leggings. I wanted to see how the golem leggings looked on my person alongside Tide Guardian armor to see if I would be fine wearing it. I care about safety and all, but I don't want to look too ridiculous as I'm slaying dragons. While in the nether, I remembered how insanely fast you move through the lava while using the fairy ring and having sprint speed maxed out. I felt like a child on a playground rather than a lone traveler in hell. On day 188, I made a bunch of armor and tried it on to see which colors I liked most. I had murdered dozens of sea serpents and fire dragons of all colors throughout my journey, and had an outfit decision to make. I decided to go for a red look with Tide Guardian boots, pants, and helm, and then with a red dragon chestplate. The golem gear indeed was too goofy for my case. I can only stand the helm with black dragon armor. I organized all the enchantments I was going to put on the armor in a chest, and on day 189 I went out to buy a few more Advanced Mending 5 books from a nearby oasis village. I spent all night 189 enchanting my new set of armor. I completely maxed out my armor except for Lightweight and Magma Walker on my boots and Inner Berserk and Meltdown on my chestplate. Everything had advanced protection for and all their most useful secondary enchantments. I was as tanky as humanly possible while wearing a fairy ring in RLCraft, since I was also holding a natural blocking 3 shield and had the undying quality on all my baubles, and I had a shield of honor equipped for the 33% resistance that it provided. I felt unstoppable. I knew that technically I could still be defeated by a handful of things at max difficulty if I was not careful, but for the first time in all my hardcore config journeys, I felt truly secure. I wasn't invincible per se, but I certainly felt like I was. On day 190, I gathered all the max bow enchantments I had and obtained from my dungeon journeys and placed them on my bow. The only enchantment I was missing was Supreme Flame, and I had Advanced Power 4 instead of Advanced Power 5, but I thought I could add those later. I used the 2-4-6-8 enchanting method, but since I only had 11 enchantments to put on, it ended up just being 2-4-5. In short, this means I combined 2 enchantments together and then added that double enchantment on my bow, and then I combined 4 enchantments and added that enchanted book on my bow. Then I combined the last 5 cheap enchantments together and placed that enchantment book on my bow. The overall cost is cheap this way, and I can add more enchantments later if I so choose. Exponential enchanting is what some people call it. It works wonders for you when you don't have upgraded potentials. But anyways, moving on. On day 191, I grabbed all the quartz I had and organized it back into my shulkers. Looking back, I probably should have just kept the quartz in the shulkers rather than deposit at my temporary base, but it didn't take too long to right this wrong. I then moved outside and started looking around for a nice place to build my base. I still had no idea what I wanted the base to look like at this point, and I had even less of an idea on where to build it. I was afraid that I wouldn't even be able to start it. When I got to 0-0, I started thinking about where I should build my base nearby. And then I decided, meh, let's build it here. I enjoyed the thought that every step I took inside the house would make me feel like I am teabagging a Malgalage. I started off by building a spiral staircase that honestly looked pretty scuffed, but that was because I didn't know how to build a spiral staircase. I just knew that I wanted one. Day 192 continued with me filling in the walls of my spiral staircase all the way to the top. I built the staircase almost to the top of the Amalgalich arena and decided I would want a second story that started at the top of the staircase and that I would go from there. I placed sea lanterns as light sources in the stairs, and on day 193 I filled in a glass wall into the side of the staircase. I do not know why I do the things that I do, but I do them. My base's building process became therapeutic in a way, and I did my best to express my creativity in the build. Planning nothing ahead of time as I forged forward just felt right. The run was chaotic, so my base should follow suit. Day 194, I finished my staircase and began filling in the floor on the second story. I then began clearing the shadowstone on the ground to make room for a quartz floor. On day 195, I finished clearing the shadowstone and began placing quartz slabs on the ground. The slabs were not positioned in a way for mobs to be unable to spawn, because I planned on making furniture. And if I had half slab floor down, then building the furniture would be scuffed. I used slabs on normal block levels just to save some quartz blocks. I knew I had 10 shulkers full, but I didn't want to waste any blocks if I didn't have to. I mainly finished the floor by the end of day 196, and on day 197, I began making the walls of my first floor. A single line of quartz blocks followed by a line of white glass blocks. I also replaced the rest of the exterior floor with shadowstone since I realized that making my house larger than it already was going to be would be a bad idea considering my current resources. On day 198, I finished placing the floor at the top of the staircase and began circling the build with more walls and glass. I would go up in a single block with every 2-block wall transition. On day 199, I made a reverse staircase with slabs above the wall because I thought it would be a nice touch, and then decided to clear out the purple flames in the arena's walls because getting too close to the flames would make me lag. It took me forever to clear the flames, so I decided to not clear the other layers. It didn't look very pretty, but I decided to finish my base before worrying about whether I would subject myself to clearing out another layer of those hellish flames. I finished up the reverse staircase and moved back to a normal staircase inwards. I had decided somewhere along the line while building my base that I did not want to feel rushed to finish it, or it may turn out bad. Because of that, I decided to continue my 200 days for a while longer. I also had some more ideas for things to do, so everything seemed to fit together in my head at the time. Despite me not knowing how many days over 200 I would go, I was eager to continue now that things were going smoothly. I finished placing all of the first story walls on day 200 and started adding some finishing touches on what I believed was a completed first floor, and then called it a day. When I continued on day 201 though, I scanned my build and decided I wanted to add some stuff. So I added a glass wall, a 2-block layer glass window, some height to walls in some areas, and some other neat touches here and there. The build began to look like something I would never be able to replicate, and I liked that. Towards the end of day 201, I moved downstairs and started replacing the shadow-themed lights with sea lanterns to fit my house's bright theme a bit better. On day 202, I started by placing some exterior lights, but thought it looked ugly, so I took the lights back. I then moved back inside to continue placing sea lanterns on the ground level to make sure creepers and such wouldn't spawn inside my house. I stayed up building the second story floor all night 202 and day 203. I then built up more walls in between floor 1 and 2 in a curved facing fashion, and then cleared out a boomerang shaped space to place a large window made of white stained glass that I finished on day 204. Mid-day 204, I began building my second floor's walls, which would be a large pyramid theme. I would go up 4 layers of 5 blocks, going in 1 block every layer, and I would go 3 layers of 4 blocks and then 2 layers of 3 blocks. It took me all day 205 and the start of day 206 to finish this pattern, and then at the end of day 206, I began going inwards in layers of 3 and 2. In short, I had a method to my madness, but it was a strange method. I finished up my roof in its entirety on day 207, and on day 208 I placed sea lanterns throughout my build in areas where rocks and djinns would stay near the roof of my first story, and I placed some sea lanterns on the walls of my build. I ran out of sea lanterns, but I lit up just about everything I wanted to. On day 208 I was satisfied with my completed build, but I had a small to-do list before I could feel satisfied with my 200-day journey. You see, I actually had a specific reason to build such a large base. I had a precious comrade that I had yet to bring into the world, in fear that it wouldn't have a place to call home. I didn't expect it to take me 108 days before I had a functioning base, but if I could predict the future, then the journey would have been less magical anyways. I stood by my pet the entire time as it hatched, so when it came into the world, I would be right by its side to steer it in the right direction and to keep it safe. It was a small male dragon that I named Jet. By the end of day 209, I introduced it to its new home. The dragon was too precious and harmless right now though, so I fed it some dragon meal to make it bigger, and went out to farm meat for it. I visited a crater base for some pork chop and stacks of bones, as well as butchered a lot of wildlife. By the end of day 210, Jet was ready to face the world. I was very afraid to use him in battle though, because pet dragons do not scale with difficulty on the hardcore config, but all the enemies and enemy dragons would. Even with diamond dragon armor on, I knew that things would be difficult, but I kept him confined for over 100 days in his egg. I wanted to let Jet spread his wings and fly. On day 211, I scorched the landscape and proudly invited any challenger. With near maxed out gear and now a strong tier 3 dragon, I felt on top of the world. And I was. Get it? Because I'm flying? Yeah, okay. I just flew Jet up to the first dragon that it met eye contact with and was fortunate to find one at only difficulty 2. Despite only being 2 days old, Jet was ready to tango. The black dragon had double my dragon's health, but Jet had me at the reins. Challenge accepted. The battle started before I knew it and both dragons were fired up. Despite Jet being smaller, he was faster and nimbler. Him and I took control over the battle before it even began. The enemy dragon flew high and low, and breathed fire so frequently that I started to feel like I was making poor Jet surf on heat waves. It was hard to dodge while flying such a massive beast, and Jet soon was brought down to 61% health. Eventually though, what we lacked in strength, we made up for teamwork and persistence. The mighty adversary began to succumb to my dragon's precise flames, and started to flee. We took this chance to get in close for the killing blow, and at last, the beast fell. As I looted the worthy adversary's body, I took a pause, and the realization on what just occurred had hit me hard. I looked into my wounded dragon's eyes and couldn't help but feel like this bloody battle was a bit cruel. Jet was just brought into this world, and it already had killed one of its own kind. I thought, what kind of monster am I? Jet isn't free. He's a slave. He deserves better. I knew exactly what I had to do. I went over to the tier 5 dragon den I found next to my desert village and summoned all of my minions and cockatrice upon it. I watched calmly as the 5,000 HP beast at difficulty 15 fell before my minions without me having to lift a finger. I truly was a tyrannical warlord. RLCraft no longer was the aggressor. I was. I didn't want things to be this way anymore. I looted the tier 5 dragon with a cold demeanor, but a glimmer of light stole my attention. I peered down upon a small brown egg. I picked it up and held it tight. I knew that this time I would be better, and that this dragon would get to live a peaceful life. I summoned Jet and looked the beast again in its eyes. His eyes were filled with rage and bloodlust. I told him that this den was now his home, and that he didn't have to fight any longer. I then wished him a peaceful life, and that I promised to visit. On day 212, I headed back to my base with a heavy heart, where I hatched my new pet dragon. This time, the dragon was a small female that I named Amber. She would not need to fight a single time in her life. She would roam around as she pleases. Well, within the safe confines of my home at least. No dragon horn for this little one. She was free. On the topic of passiveness, I decided that before I ended my adventure that I would test two passive sources of items, an advanced version of an Enderman farm and a duplication glitch, both of which I presumed were either patched in a previous version of RLCraft or impossible to utilize in RLCraft. Day 214, I grabbed everything I needed to make my Enderman farm and I left for the end. Here I would build Gnemban's Ender Mini Enderman farm, which was the fastest Enderman farm that I knew of. A more protective and walled-in version of RLCraft's one-hit Enderman farm is the one that most RLCraft veterans go for in their playthroughs, but I wanted to see if I could get Gnembombs to work in RLCraft since it is technically the fastest. On day 215, I was beginning to build my farm, but because of fatigue or whatever dumb reason, I kept forgetting items at my base, so I kept having to return to my base for materials periodically. And then after that, I didn't finish the farm until day 217 because I kept accidentally killing the endermites I spawned by throwing ender pearls. But then, something unfortunate happened right as I neared the farm's completion and got comfortable. The endermite I name tagged turned into a rare enemy and blew itself up trying to attack me. Yeah, I forgot that the longer a normal enemy stays alive in RLCraft, the higher its chance of becoming a rare mob variant. It seems Gnembom's speedy Enderman farm indeed does not work in RLCraft. But RLCraft's farm does work because the endermite is elevated high up so it won't aggro the player. On the morning of day 218, I was back at my base where I tamed and soulbound a nearby Barghest for some reason. I then headed down into my underground village to test out something truly ridiculous. But I wanted to see for myself if something would actually happen. You see, in RLCraft version 2.6.3, which is nearly 2 years old at this point, there was a duplication glitch where you could place items in a soulbound creature's inventory, and then if you set the creature on fire with a bucket of lava and loot its inventory after it dies, then when you resummon your minion, your loot will be duplicated. It was a game-breaking exploit that I heard about only after it had been apparently patched. So I never tried it, but recently I had a weird feeling. I was watching back some of my old multiplayer server streams and noticed that a few players were seemingly duplicating items in the newest version of RLCraft, but I shrugged it off and said that it isn't possible without a risky exploit that people shouldn't do even if they find a way to, and they could lose their items in the process. But then I thought, wait, what if? Oh my god, it still works. You can duplicate XP tomes, diamond blocks, weapons, armor, anything. I can't believe that this wasn't patched. A moderator of mine told me it was and I never checked myself. Well, I hope it gets patched in version 2.9 because this exploit is game breaking. Use this knowledge wisely, gamers. I just couldn't bring myself to not share this with you though, because I feel like bringing this up to the public's eyes is better than keeping it secret. Sorry not sorry, but I like my game being hard. I'm certainly glad that I could find this out along my 200-day journey though. It felt like the icing on the cake to me at the time. After finishing up testing the duplication glitch, I bid Amber and my base farewell, and thanked the RLCraft gods for giving me a bit of luck when I needed it most. The journey was full of ups and downs, but in the end I was satisfied. I had a wonderful adventure where I was constantly on the tip of my seat. 200 days on the RLCraft Hardcore config. Mission complete. Hey guys, I really hope you enjoyed that video. I went through a lot of ups and downs throughout those 218 days, but I'm really glad that I ended on a positive note. There was less close calls this time as I was playing even more carefully than in the first 100 days. I felt like dying would lose more than just my run at this point. It would break not only my own heart, but also the hearts of many of those that had hoped to see what had become of this world. I do not believe I will make a third part though. In RLCraft Endgame, all there is to do is go plus ultra and to grind and grind more and more. The only thing I would end up doing is gathering all the quartz in existence and just build for 100 days anyways, which is still fun, but I don't know how I could make a video out of that. When I was building that Enderman farm, I was incredibly anxious as well. Maxed out gear can't save you from the void after all. The thought of losing everything was very frightening to me. All in all though, this hardcore experience taught me a lot about RLCraft, and I became a much stronger and precise player along the way. Despite the road bumps, I experienced an amazing journey, and I am looking forward to what is to come for RLCraft's and gaming's future. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye. And what needs to be done, don't just kiss someone because they make lots of money. Bum, bum. That's such a cop-out. Ba-da-dum, ba-da-da-da-dum, ba-da-dum. Where was my thriller? Bum, bum. Very disappointed, ba-da-dum, bum. But I still loved the movie.